Every time I talk about Beer Die, I want to play it like immediately.
We saw it and kind of like our eyes both lit up. We're like, dude, they're playing die over there? Like, we gotta go.
Beard, I like kind of set the course of what I was doing for the rest of my life.
You hear that little plank off the table, and it's like, this is heaven. Like is this I? No, it's Iowa. No, this is Beard Eye.
My gift to Beard Eye was my presence at it. It was for the benefit of everyone watching.
You're the Pope of Beard Eye.
Yeah,
For the past 3 decades, I have had a not-so-secret obsession simmering beneath the layers of an average American life. The time has come to seek the community of like-minded true believers. This is the road to Beard Eye Nation. Episode 1, The Elevator Pitch. My name's not important, but it's probably easy enough to figure out. For the past 30 years, I've lived a full and robust adult life. I've had 2 rewarding, decade-long careers, raised 2 terrific sons with my wife in a house of relative joy and abundant laughter. I've continued my nostalgic fervor for the New York sports teams of my youth. Thank you very much, Internet. Been a consistent, if not active member of the Presbyterian Church, and even taken up documentary podcasting as a hobby in recent years. But who hasn't? Despite all these engaging and passionate pursuits, there is only one interest I have ever had about which I am truly evangelical, and I'm beginning to become convinced I may not be alone.
It was my sophomore year going down to the National Fraternity Conference, and I was living in Colorado at the time, and I actually got a ride from some Colorado guys and was meeting, our own guys down there. I think it was in Phoenix. So I drove down with these Colorado guys, and I think I stayed a night in their hotel before our guys got there. And I was like, hey, let's try and play this game. And we ended up taking one of the doors off of the hotel and using that and playing singles because like that's what we had.
Introduce somebody new to the game. It's typically been at my house or an event that I'm hosting, and where like if I don't have like a formal table, I have things that I could use as a table, and it's kind of turned into everyone standing around looking at each other. And I mean, look, perfect example this summer. I live across the street from a park. We had a big fire. Like the park was having a fireworks show, so we had a big party. Rolled out. Bought a bunch of booze. Had a keg. Had about 80 people at the house, and they're like with their kids. And then as the party starts to wind down, it's like the fireworks go off. It's about 9:30, 10 o'clock. There's stragglers, and about 20 people there. I grabbed 4 of them and we put a table together and was like, all right, guys, I'm going to teach you a new game. Like grab a beer, fill it up. Here we go. And start walking through like just basics of like, okay, you got to catch it. You don't catch one hand. So you're sitting down, whatever, then walk through just some of the basics. It's like, okay, you missed that throw it again. Right. Like it's almost like tennis in that aspect of like, okay, hit it again. And then all of a sudden, okay, we're going to play for real. These are the rules. And then let's count. And then like there were people's spouses, there were kids watching, like, and which I don't at all feel like a degenerate saying that. Like we were teaching them very sportsmanship, right, at the highest level.
But then some of my buddies growing up, my high school buddies, ended up pitching it to them also. And then all of a sudden it just like spread and they took it to their colleges as well.
I brought it to Denver. My family had friends over for a barbecue. It's midsummer after I've graduated, and we have a die table in the garage. My father, the plumber, because he had a 4x8 plywood table in the garage, and so someone had the idea, hey, let's play some die. And so we set up a table, and so rather than having to pitch anyone, the game, like it always does, pitched itself. And these old timers who would have been absolutely suspicious of anything that I was doing, but would have been dubious at best, trying to convince them to play some game. Instead, they saw us playing and insisted on playing. And so My dad sat down next to me and we played another friend of his who played with a friend of mine. And before we knew it, we had a line of people who wanted to play.
I am no different than these voices you hear from my choir of true believers when it comes to sharing the good news about Beard Eye. I mean, I'll talk New York sports with other New Yorkers, but fan allegiance is not my gospel to spread. Career-wise, when a patient asks me which toothpaste I recommend, the only answer I've ever been able to muster is a lackluster bordering on sarcastic, whichever one you'll use. As far as spreading the actual gospel, a promise I think I make out loud most Sundays, that unfortunate scorecard is between me and God. And I'm fairly certain that this particular project is not pushing me into the black on that ledger. But if you give me the opportunity to talk about Beard Eye, I light up like a Christmas tree, words and sacraments radiating in all directions. Who in their right mind gets that excited for a drinking game? Well, before we get to that, and we will eventually get to that, the first thing to understand is that Beard Eye is not a normal drinking game.
You know what though? There's something electric about sitting down to a seat at a Beard Eye table, regardless of where the venue is. When that tap happens, I mean, it's like a judge's gavel in a courtroom when you're waiting for a verdict, right? Like, this is either going to go well, but you're putting risk into it just to sit down at that table. Because yeah, you could be drinking 16 beers in the next 30 minutes and win the game.
Yes.
And
you
have
could
to
not
play
drink a
another
sip.
game right
And
after
you could not
that.
drink a sip and get shut out.
Yes, right. And embarrassed and look like a total idiot, right? In front of everybody that's at the party that night, right? Like, so there was a social risk, but you were putting your body on the line, stepping in. There was like, I mean, it sounds crazy, but it was like gladiatorial, man. Like,
Yeah, it feels that important. It's that intense, right? And that's what it is. The playing it is intense that you lose yourself in the moment. It's true recreation in that way.
Where you played it, how you played it, what was necessary, and what you wanted to do was be able to stay on the table as long as you could. And in order to stay on the table as long as you could, you had to be good and you had to beat the kids that were across from you. And like, losing sucked. That could ruin my whole night, right? Like, especially on like your first game, right? By your third or your fourth game, like, you're feeling it, you know, like, now it's time to go look for women. I did what I had to do tonight, and it was the things about Beard Eye that always, like, as I got more and more into it, and you really, once you start, there's this whole list of rules to work on. Man, you got to build up your tolerance, because that's part of gameplay, right? This is like any kind of sport, tennis, baseball, football. To the uninitiated, the rules make absolutely no sense. And that the only way you really come to understand the rules is just by playing it and watching it and participating in it, and hours and hours and hours of dedication to the craft. And like, in order to get good, you had to put that time and then that energy in. But like, you start as a freshman, you just get rolled off of tables, right? Yeah. By your senior year, you've got some dude that you've probably been paired up with for 3-4 years. And like you know each other in a way that you really never get to know anybody else in your life, right?
I was like, this is stupid. Caps is way better. And then you sit down at the table and your competitive juices get flowing. And I don't know, it's the greatest game ever. It's the greatest game ever. I thank my Beard Eye skills probably once a week when something falls off the counter and I just grab it. And you experience that? Like, you still have quick hands where like something's coming off the counter, like a spoon or something, or a bottle of Advil, and you just grab it. My wife's like, wow, that was fast. It's like, yeah, Beard Eye. She just rolls her eyes. She's like, that stupid game. The 20-year-old me is like, yeah, let's do that right now. Right. But with responsibilities and having a spouse and 2 kids and coaching basketball teams, for both kids and taking them to Taekwondo and music, whatever. It's just like, no, you can't. I can't just on a Monday night be like, yeah, let's tap the die and let's maybe casually drink 2 to 15 beers. You know what I mean? It's because that's how it goes, right? And there's no, and like a friendly game of die is like seeing a unicorn being ridden by a leprechaun. It doesn't exist because you become, I guess I'll speak for myself. I become so competitive and want to win, but also have fun, but just want to make the other team as miserable as possible.
It requires some component of athleticism to actually compete. And so, when you're sitting there, like, the natural progression of things of like, okay, I'm gonna have a few beers, you get buzzed, whatever. You're competing, you're talking shit, you're doing whatever, but it's all in fun, and it's a gentleman's game, right? So it does nothing but foster community with whomever you're playing, unless they're a complete dick, and then you just want to sink and sink again, and then win. But like, it's just one of those things where it's straight up community and competition and put your skills on display. And there's no place to hide. There's 2 of you. Go for it. Make it happen.
The simplest way to explain it is that beer die feels like a sport. It is played across a 4x8 sheet of particle board with teams of 2 on either side, players situated at the corners with a cup of beer in front of them on the table. A die, which for the uninitiated is the singular of the word dice, so that little square thing you roll in board games, serves as the ball for this game, and it is tossed underhand up above a considerable height, more on that to come, so that it bounces on the table. When it comes off the table, the receiving team has to catch it one-handed without trapping it, more on that to come. Otherwise, a point is scored against them. 7 points against you, you lose. The challenge of making great tosses and equally great catches is there in every play of beer die, because a square die takes crazy bounces with more momentum coming down from a considerable height than a hollow sphere ping pong ball floated toward a bunch of cups ever could. So the game seems simple enough, but intertwined with this admittedly challenging rally mechanism for the scoring of the game is a minefield of what seems like a million even more specific drinking rules that are both physical and mental, and they add layers of complexity to navigating this game.
So, but the key tenets that I like about beer die: one, it is competitive, it is sport. You have the hallmarks of football, baseball, tennis, but with the level and the complexity of the rules that you have associated, you have the athleticism, you have your ability to have tolerance. You've got all these different, you have to be offensive, you have to be defensive. A fully well-oiled team has got all of these different characteristics in them, let alone the run book of a history of watching the game. But at the same time, you needed to be able to sit there and talk shit like the entire game, coming from every direction while you're sitting at the table, right? And so like the crowd is not like in golf where it's quiet, or in tennis, is quiet while you're throwing. Like, they are engaged, dynamic, loud. It's funny, like that. It's weird. There was just certain people that when they sat at the table, I knew I was going to win that game. And like, there was one dude, at last count I had, I'd beat him like 12 in a row. And every time he sat down after like the third one, I'm like, so is it going to be the 4th time you lose to me? And like, this kid would just shit talk the whole game, and it would end up being like 6-2, buzz 3, like I but like I couldn't be nice to him because it was part of like the way that I had to mentally break him down for the next time I saw him at the table. Like, I needed that in his brain the next time he came up against me.
There was a level of social dynamic that I learned not right away, but early on. I would cultivate a certain persona at the table that benefited me. And I wasn't a big guy and I wasn't a scrapper. And so I would certainly talk shit to my friends, to certain friends, but then I found out that it served me to actually be friendly and personable with my opponents, to cultivate, win the crowd, win your freedom. I realized that it somehow benefited me if the crowd enjoyed my antics and if my opponents appreciated my antics, even subconsciously, so as to not be as aggressive towards me. I didn't even have this mindset or the words to talk about this mindset.
You just did it, right?
I knew early on that beer die is a game of edges. If you can create a small edge against your opponent because you can consume more alcohol, but you consume less because of how you play, and you make your opponent consume more because how you play, you create an edge. I realized that I could create an edge with my opponents, not by triggering them into being aggressive and more competitive, but rather to lull them into a sense of having a good time. And when I knew that this game was everything, I knew that winning the game was everything. But I presented a very casual demeanor where win or lose, I can take it. I mean, yeah, I've won 4 in a row, but I'm just having fun over here. Outwardly, I'm there having a great time and being really sociable. Internally, all I want to do is win.
It's almost like the military term or expression, do not fire until fired upon, where I wouldn't call a low call first unless it was blatantly low. Because once that first low call is called in this quote unquote friendly game of beer die, it sets the tone, right? And so,
Right. And then you also get to where if you need a momentum change, you can make shady
yeah,
low calls
yeah,
to mess with, right?
yeah, it's to get your opponents out of
Just to
their
just
game or break
yeah,
the
yeah,
routine.
or get them to change how they're throwing, right?
That
To
yeah,
even
100%,
a little bit, right?
100%.
And that can start costing them drinks,
Yeah,
and that can shift it. It's
yeah, and like any sport, right? Where if you can find a competitive edge against your opponent, some trash talking goes on, or you could ask, the guy sitting across the table from you, hey, how did that go with Cindy last night, or Mary, or whomever it was, and
I've always mentioned in my elevator pitch recruiting new beard eye players that its elegance lies in the fact that drinking and winning are separate but mostly inversely correlated. You could play this game without drinking at all, but it is just not the same. The dynamic of the alcohol unlocks all the layers that make the experience engaging. It's kind of the difference between hearing Ode to Joy played on your old 1999 cell phone's ringtone and hearing it played at Carnegie Hall by the New York Philharmonic. I never set out playing Beard Eye to get drunk, but I understood it was a distinct probability the more I won. Well, who am I kidding? It was an inevitability. So before one even gives the elevator pitch, one has to be doing so to potential players not threatened by this reality. This is why the choir of true believers we just heard from tended to introduce the game at parties or barbecues where people were already drinking, or maybe to a bunch of dudes from a different chapter of our fraternity who probably were into drinking. This is no surprise. But what they made me realize during my interviews with them is that the scope of the elevator pitch is limited to getting someone in a room or a backyard with Beard Eye. Once you are in its presence, the game itself closes the deal.
I'll never forget the first game I ever played either. Oddly enough, Beard Eye like kind of set the course of what I was doing for the rest of my life. I was getting recruited to 4 different schools to play football. And my first trip to Lake, I've been to Augustana already. I've been to Drake. And I went to St. Ambrose after my first visit at Lake Forest. And I was up at Timmy's room, and we were playing singles, like, because the table was so small in that room. And I beat him, and I was like, "This is the greatest game ever! Like, this place is the best place I've ever been to in my life."
The game itself just lends itself to, you're gonna sit and watch, you're gonna wait for a game. Like, I've forgotten more games than I probably played. You know what I mean? Like, the stuff that comes with the game, this stuff, the effort that goes into seeing each other so that we can, like, we're gonna, like you said, we flew across the country, you know, one time to Chicago, one time out here to Denver, so that we could just hang out and play this silly drinking game when we're all in our 40s. Like that in itself makes it, just to me, that's what makes it the greatest game. Like, more memories, you know, like, it's just, I don't know, that it's hard to put into words for me. Like, the camaraderie that came with the game is as big as the game for what I can recall. Like,
First time I saw it, fall 95, parking lot, homecoming weekend tailgate. And I mean, really kind of an interesting day the more I think about that. And as much as, you know, it was the first time I met a lot of guys that I still talk to this day, was that afternoon out in that parking lot, right? But there were 2 tables set up, you know, some guys were on there, some of the older guys, and some of the, you know, guys in your class and stuff like that. So, but got to really watch the game. And, you know, at some point you get into the rules of the game, and the first time you see it, it is this, like, what in the hell is going on? There's this whole language that's being spoken. Everyone has, you know, one thing I always appreciated about Beard Eye is that you rarely had blowout arguments over a game. Maybe people had a disagreement about what happened in the middle of gameplay, but generally everyone was so astute enough to know the rules that if there were disagreements between the 2 guys, any guy that was standing next to the table could be like, with authority, like, no, that went this is how that played out. Next point, right? Go, right? Like, and everyone would just agree to that and move on, right? But, you know, I've always been one that I don't need to talk about it. I just need to show how awesome it is, right?
I guess you have. I mean, I can't say I've never played Beirut or one of those, so maybe there is some aspect of it in that. But there's no way you walk off those tables feeling like you did something great, which is crazy to play a drinking game and feel like you did something great.
You know, that was a big part of the draw to the game, right? Not only was it about staying on the table, but like being in the middle of the action of a great game, where it would be like watching a championship tennis match. You got everybody in the crowd living and dying on each of these tosses. You've got a late 1-score game. Next point really determines what's going to happen. And you got people just amped up with every single throw. And you have guys that are, you know, great guys are becoming unbelievable, right? And
Right.
like legends.
It's almost like a
for the
mythology,
night,
right? Yeah.
right? Like, he caught it behind his head after doing a backflip, and everybody saw
Yeah.
it.
Like you like it's crazy. Like, you guys were talking about some catch that Zeke's made, like at a ridiculous level. Like, every single one of us on the has like their Sports Center top 10. You know, I played with Gilly multiple times where, you know, all of a sudden he'd make a catch and he'd be like, did it, and you'd be like, okay, like. Or you'd watch somebody make a catch and you know, you'd feel that, like, man, that's a Sports Center top 10, like, hands down.
The biggest salesman in Beard Eye is the game itself. And I think there's an appeal to prospective players thinking like, okay, this is a simple enough game. I'm going to be good at this game. And then the nuances of throwing and catching and knowing all the rules are very challenging.
And that's the other thing. There were some females that could dominate a beard eye table. It wasn't just like a guy thing, right? It wasn't super machismo. There were some crafty girls who would just beat the shit out of really good men's teams, right? And just sit there smiling and just being like, who's next? And you're like, wow. Phenomenal skills, Beard eye doesn't discriminate. It's not it doesn't care what color you are, what gender you are. It's like, if you can play the game, if you can catch a die that's, coming at you at whatever speed it is or how many bounces. And
while the ultimate mission of this podcast series is to continue adding to the choir of true believers, we have to handle first things first. You've now heard the elevator pitch. The next stop on the road to Beard Eye Nation, we're going to get you in a room with Beard Eye as best we can via podcast. As the choir just reminded us, there is a place at this table for everyone. So we hope you'll join us as we continue on the road to Beard Eye Nation.
Broken boards and a makeshift table, stories told if we're able, sweaty palms on worn out wood.
The Road to Beard Eye Nation is produced by the 9 Stories Up Investigative Department in association with Beanbag Studios. If you think you know a true believer, please let them know about the show. If you think you may be a true believer, please give us a Biz Star rating. If you think you may be part of the choir, please reach out to us via email at beardeyenationpodcast@gmail.com or Beard Eye Nation on the major social media outlets, so we can tell your story in a future episode. The first Beard Eye Nation live reunion is taking place this July in the Chicago area. Please email us for more details or check out our website, beardeyenation.com. Finally, I'd like to thank the choir of true believers for their contributions and their friendship. From the opening tap and toss, they continue to be one step ahead.
It's the same. You're recruiting people to get involved the same way you would recruit somebody to come play. It's the same. The nuances are the same.